And I think with that, I'll introduce our two presenters. So we have, first up is Elaine Settergren she's the accessibility coordinator for the Legislative Reference Library. And then our other presenter is Rebecca Oestreich. She's the DNR's accessibility coordinator. So take it away, Elaine.
Okay, thank you, Jed. This is Elaine Settergren speaking. Today we're going to talk about templates and reading order, unique titles, simple layouts, alt text, charts and graphs, and then we'll have a Q&A. So as we're talking, if you're entering questions into the Q&A box, like Jed directed you to, then we'll get to those Q&As at that point. And Rebecca and I will just kind of go back and forth on these topics.
Thanks, Elaine. This is Rebecca. So our first tip for creating accessible PowerPoints is to use the state of Minnesota PowerPoint template. This template was created by MNIT, and it uses our state branding and is pre-formatted for accessibility. So this means that things like color schemes and font size are already built in to the template with accessibility in mind. The template also comes with 54 pre-designed slide layouts. The image on the right of this slide shows a few of those options. Having these slide layouts is important because when we create slides from scratch, our inclination is to use text boxes. And unfortunately, text boxes are not accessible. They cannot be read by screen readers. So instead of text boxes, you need to use content placeholders. Well, these pre-designed slide layouts are chock full of different combinations of content placeholders. So you have everything built in for what you need. One thing to keep in mind, even though this template is extremely helpful, it is only an accessibility starting point. So you still need to follow your best practices and check for errors. The template is available for every agency. If you don't think that you have the template, you can talk to your communications staff and they can help you get a version that will feature your agency logo. All right, next slide.
Thanks. The next tip we have for you is about reading order. And reading order is extremely important because this is the way the slide will be read by people who are using keyboard only or screen readers. And reading order is also really important because it's something that can get out of whack really easily if you start customizing your slides. So you need to enter the selection pane. And when you do, something to note is that it's read in reverse order. So you can see it reads from the bottom to the top. And these are kind of like layers in Photoshop. So I'll read the title, then content placeholder 2 and 3, and then picture 4. So the selection pane, you can get to that in a number of ways. The first way you can get to that is by running the accessibility checker. So you can go to the review tab and go to accessibility checker, and often they'll give you a warning about checking your reading order. And it's easy to do. You just click on, for example, here we clicked on slide 1, and then it shows you the reading order, and you can drag and drop those as needed. Another way to get to that selection pane is to search for it. And so you can search just selection pane or reading order and then enter it that way. Or you can navigate down through the home tab to editing to selection pane. And that's what that image there is showing, that you can kind of drill down to the selection pane that way.
Thanks, Elaine. This is Rebecca. Our next tip is make sure that you are using a unique slide title for each slide. What I mean by this is instead of having 3 slides all titled favorite fall foods, you need to be specific. Name one your favorite fall baked goods, another slide your favorite fall drinks. And the reason is that these slide titles are used to navigate. So they provide structure to your PowerPoint, similar to the way that section headings provide structure in a Word document. So someone can skim or use a screen reader, and they're able to quickly scan through the list of slide titles and then go right to the slide that they want. The image on the screen is just a blue tulip in the midst of a sea of red, showing how important it is to have something that's unique so you know exactly where you need to go. Next slide.
Now we're going to talk about simple layouts, and this goes back to what Rebecca was talking about with templates. If you use those built-in layout and design features, then the accessibility will be there from the start. Another tip with simple layouts is to value your white space, because it gives your eyes the chance to really take in only the most important pieces. And along with that, you want to use large sans serif fonts. So Calibri, which we're using here, is sans serif. An example of a serif font would be like Times New Roman, and it's easier to read sans serif fonts like Calibri on the screen. And when I say large, generally we go for 18-point font or bigger. Be thoughtful about your images. Don't use an image as a background if you can help it. And images can be really powerful, a powerful way to get your point across, but it can also just make your presentation too complicated. And so the reasons why we want to use simple layouts are for large rooms, if people are sitting far away, for small screens, now that we're all virtual, if somebody's watching your presentation on a small screen, or even small screens in big rooms, that can happen too. Also, participants with dyslexia will have an easier time reading sans serif fonts and slides with a lot of white space. And of course, the rest of us as well, screen reader users, like all of us, will have an easier time if you're really only focusing on the key points and using simple layouts. So I have a couple of examples. The first image here is a tweet showing a slide that was presented virtually, and it's a nice clear slide. Even on a small screen, you can see the slide really nicely. There's a graph there, and the title is pretty clear. There's not a lot going on that slide, and so it's easy to see on a small screen. And then the other example there is a hearing room in the state office building, and there's small screens in a big room there. And so you want to use a simple layout to make sure that you're getting your points across. I have a couple of examples of poor layouts. This is one that we probably all see quite a bit. It's where everything I wanted to say is just written out. It can be really overwhelming and also really boring. So this was one that's not recommended. Another one that seems like a good idea when you're creating it is to use a background as an image. It's really beautiful, but it doesn't really help us to get our points across because it's too overwhelming and the words get lost on the image. If you wanted to use a large image like that, you'd probably consider just removing the words altogether, or providing a solid background to the words.
This is Rebecca. All pictures, tables, charts, shapes, smart art graphics, and embedded objects need alt text. Most of you should be familiar with that from Word. Now, I'm going to go over a little bit how to do that, but it depends on the version of PowerPoint that you have. So I'm going to start out with those of us that still have Office 2013 and 2016. So what you would do is you would right-click on your graphic and you're going to select Format Picture. The keyboard shortcut for that is Alt-J-P-O. You're going to open the Size and Properties panel and choose Alt Text. The picture on the left is a screenshot of showing how this would look. And then the alt text goes into the description box. Next slide. If you have Office 365 to add alt text, you right-click on the graphic and select Edit Alt Text. This keyboard shortcut for this is Shift F10. Or another option is to open the Picture Tools Format tab and then choose Alt Text. You'll notice already that the alt text box does look a little bit different in Office 365 than in Office 2016 or 2013. The biggest thing, and kind of one of the nicest things, is they took away the title box. Before, you had to remember which box to put your alt text in. Does it go in the title or in the description? Well, in Office 365, you have exactly one text box to put it in, so it's much easier. Another really cool feature about Office 365 is you can mark your image as decorative. For example, let's say you have a border on your PowerPoint slide. Well, the border is not really important, and if you mark it as decorative, then it will be skipped over by a screen reader. Next slide. I just want to give a couple alt text tips. Some of you have probably found that alt text can be a little bit more of an art form than a science. So I just kind of wanted to give you a few things to think about when you're creating your alt text. The first is you really just want to state the purpose and the function of the image instead of simply describing its appearance. On the slide, you'll see a picture of two people bicycling on the state trail. So if I were going to add alt text to this, I would look at the purpose of this picture. Is the purpose of the picture being used to advertise the location? In that case, I might say, two people bicycling next to Lake Superior on the Gitchigami State Trail. Maybe the picture is being used in an advertisement to emphasize safety. In that case, I might use an alt text that says two bicyclists wearing bike helmets. So really there's a lot of different ways that you can go with alt text, but just really focus on the purpose and the function. The next step is use clear, concise terms and don't use acronyms. So use Minnesota Department of Health instead of MDH. You don't need to use extra words like a picture of. The screen reader will already identify the image as an image by stating image before it reads your alt text. Then an exception to that might be if it's helpful to include the image type. An example of this is if it's a screenshot, in which case I might say screenshot of. Be succinct. One rule of thumb that's sometimes used is to not use more than 250 characters. You may have noticed on the previous slide that the alt text in Office 365 recommends 1 or 2 sentences. And one of the main reasons behind that is that listening to alt text can, quite frankly, be taxing. You know, it's a lot to listen to. If you need more space to explain the image, especially if it's a chart or a graph, use a caption or kind of incorporate it into your surrounding text. Next slide.
All right, thanks. This is Elaine speaking again. And speaking of charts and graphs, that's what our next tip focuses on. The main idea here with charts and graphs is just to really keep it readable. You want to make sure that you're focusing on your main message, and if there's too much information on your chart or your graph, you'll want to link out to the data or link out maybe to a web page that has more information about what you're explaining. You'll want to combine small pie chart slices. The image on the screen here is an example of something that didn't work out so well. They tried to combine some pie chart slices, but it's still just too overwhelming. The font is too small and it's not really exactly clear how much of each slice of the pie are all of the different funds. And that brings us to our next point, which is 18-point font size is kind of the benchmark there, and data labels need to be readable. One thing that you can do is to go and view it in grayscale, and this will show you if it's still readable, and it will also remind you not to rely on color for meaning. So if everything's kind of blurred together in grayscale, then you know you need to go back and make some changes so that it's readable. You can make your graphs and charts even better for users that are using screen readers, by grouping your objects into a single image and then just providing alt text for that one image. So there's a grouping feature that you can use to do that. So this is another example of a pie chart. And this one is a little bit more clear. It's got a title, it's got the bigger labels on each piece of the pie with percentages, which is a lot more clear to see. The reason that we want to do this is to just make it easier to understand. It's easier for people who are printing. It helps people who are have sight issues or color blindness and people who have cognitive disabilities to understand the charts and graphs that you provide. You'll want to try to just simplify what you're presenting visually and on the slide, and then provide extra information as you're speaking, or link out to that extra information. Here is a screenshot of another graph, and this one is a pretty good example. It's showing a bar graph that looks pretty good in size. It's got all of the necessary components, but it's not too small. It looks good in grayscale. So it would just need to have alt text applied to the whole thing to explain the purpose of this graph, and it would be good to go. So here are some resources that we're providing with the presentation. I know they're not clickable in WebEx. At least I think they're not clickable in WebEx. We've got the Minnesota Office of Accessibility tips about PowerPoint presentations, and you can ask your digital accessibility coordinator for a quick card. I mentioned earlier the search box within PowerPoint. That's a really useful tool. You can look for any of these sorts of things in that search box. Microsoft has a lot of different help pages and helpful videos out there. And then we also have the WebAIM PowerPoint accessibility training, which is also extremely useful. So now we'll switch over to Q&A.
All right, we have another panelist joining us for the Q&A. Tamara Sawyer is the accessibility coordinator with Minnesota Management and Budget. So I will read off some of the questions that we've had, and then our panelists will take those questions. So the first one was, will the presentation be available afterwards? And the answer is yes. And then I just pasted the Office of Accessibility's website in the Q&A, so that's where it will show up. Another question is about reading order. So do we want reading order to show up in reverse order, or was that showing what can happen if you move things around?
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Tamara Sawyer, and I'll be answering your questions. So the first one about reading order, what we want to make sure when we look at the selection pane is that the very first thing read should be the bottom item. So generally the very first thing that you want read would be the slide title, because that tells people where they're at when they land on that slide. So you want to make sure that the slide title is at the bottom. And from there, the content that stacks up on top of that slide item or that slide title would be the following items that you want read in the order you want them read in.
Another thing related to that is, what about if there's audio embedded in your slide? I didn't read the whole, there was another follow-up part to the question.
So if you're embedding audio, I would actually put that last. So I would have the slide title first, a description of what that audio is going to be, and then put the link for the audio in.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Here's another one. What happens if we have, I think what they mean is continuation of information from one slide to the next slide.
That happens a lot, actually. So let's say you've got a whole lot of information and you're talking about one subject, and you want that slide title to be the same title on, let's say, 4 slides in a row. But each slide needs to have a unique title. So what I do in that case is I'll put on the first one, I'll have slide title 1 of 4. and then the following one, 2 of 4, 3 of 4, etc. Now, if you've just got 2 slides, you can put the title on slide number 1, and then on the second one, you can put continued afterwards. So that gives you a couple of options on how to handle that.
Thank you. In the beginning of the presentation, it was mentioned that there are many accessible slide options in the template that MNIT created. However, when I open it, there is only 7 slides to pick from. How do we get more of those slide options for our agency?
I would talk to your communications department, and if they don't have more than that, let them know that MNIT does have more than 7 different templates to choose from, and to contact them and to try to get a more updated slide template set.
Okay, let's see. When writing alt text for a chart or table, how do you refer to the data within the table? How detailed do you need to be?
That's a tough one. That could be anything from a pie chart with only 3 pieces of information, in which I would just put the chart, label it as a pie chart so that people know what it is, the title of the chart, and those 3 pieces of information. The problem is most of our charts are not that simple. Some of them can be extremely complex. So I could talk about this for almost a half an hour, but to summarize it quickly, you've got a couple options. One is ask yourself, what is that chart saying? And put a summary of what's important about that chart. The second one is to have a reference slide or some other reference material and have a summary about it, and then put a link to the full description. And then the third thing that you could do would be to have the table that goes along with the chart, either on that slide or on a reference slide at the end of your deck. So it just depends on how detailed it is, how much information you need to describe to your users. There is no one perfect answer for everything.
Okay, I saw a PowerPoint that had a sub-slide titles along the bottom of the title box. They functioned like a set of tabs showing where in the presentation we were. Is this accessible? Is it available in a MNIT PowerPoint template?
I personally have never seen that one. Elaine, Rebecca, how about you two?
No, I've not seen it, which makes me think it's probably not in the MNIT template. As far as finding out if it is accessible, that would be something we'd have to look into. We could also potentially, I don't know, Tamara, if you wanted to talk a little bit about the outline view, that might be a good time.
Yeah, we can talk about that. So, I'm trying to picture this. I've only got one screen in front of me, so if I switch over, I lose everything else. There are several views that you can use, and traditionally, whenever you create a PowerPoint, you're in the slide view. So on the left-hand side of the PowerPoint, you see a list of slides, or all of the slides that are inside of your PowerPoint. There is an outline view, and I believe that's under the View tab. And if you go to the View tab, one of the ones that you can choose is Outline. And the outline, everything that shows up in that outline view should be accessible to those people using assistive technologies, such as screen readers or refreshable braille displays. It also lets you know if every slide has a title or not. So my recommendation would be, if you do have access to that, double check in that view, in that slide view or the outline view, and see if it shows up. And if it does, there's a good chance that it should be accessible, but I can't say for sure without it being tested.
Thank you. All right, we see a lot of double capital L tags at the top of lists in the PDF tag tree from PowerPoint files. We think it's happening after we retag the PDF after we convert it from PowerPoint. Is there a list glitch in the template, or what else should we use?
That's something new that I've just started seeing myself. I don't have an answer for why it's happening. that's fairly new. So I don't know if it's something in the conversion process where it's a hiccup. I don't think it's in the template, because I'll have a template in which people are using the same slide layout for multiple slides, and it will appear on one and not on the other 10 or 12. So I don't think it's in the template. I think it's in the conversion process.
Okay. Can someone elaborate more about the grouping feature?
I personally don't use grouping a whole lot. I can talk a little bit about it. If Elaine or Rebecca use it more frequently than I do, I generally take screenshots rather than grouping content. Elaine or Rebecca, what about you two?
Yeah, this is Elaine. I can take this question. You click on the picture, and then in the picture tab, there's one of the options is group. And so you can hold down the control key and select multiple objects that way. And then it just groups them together as one image. And I would show you an example, but I'm working on the web version, and I can't seem to group things in the web version. So there's always something. So.
This is Tamara again. One problem that I found about grouping is if you have multiple objects before you group them, you've assigned alternate text to multiple objects. When you do group them and you convert it into a PDF, you come up with errors for that multiple alt text for one image. And that's why I generally don't group things together. A safer way of doing it is to take a screenshot and insert an image of it.
That actually follows into our next one. Earlier it was mentioned not to use a text box, and the person said they do not. I use a screenshot. Anything different needed to do when using a screenshot?
Okay, so a screenshot is an image, and you would need to place that image into a content placeholder. Now, a content placeholder, visually, it looks a lot like a text box, but they're very different. Content placeholders are fully accessible to assistive technologies, such as screen readers and refreshable braille displays, whereas text boxes often cannot be accessed by assistive technologies. So you would put your screenshot into a content placeholder. Does that make sense?
Let's see if there's a follow-up question on that. Okay. Are templates already available that read bottom to top? Mine require me to move the order from top down to bottom up.
Templates, when they're created, should have been created in the proper order. What happens is if you place content in those templates and then decide to change, maybe you want your image larger, or you decide, well, my image is currently on the bottom right, I want it on the top left, and you move things, then you're definitely going to have to redo your order. Okay, so the templates themselves should be good when you get them. There may be one or two that people have created and added to the slide deck, and those may not have been done properly if they were added by people who didn't know to do that.
Okay.
This is Elaine. Can I just add on really briefly about that? You can, if you're not sure about the bottom up or top down, one thing that I do is I just pick one and then use my tab key to see if I'm going in the right direction. So you can use the tab to go from box to box.
There was a follow-up question. Could anyone show the text box versus the content holder?
Give me one moment to pull something up here really quick, and then
Okay.
I'll ask to share my screen. This may take me a moment.
All right. Well, we'll keep going with other questions, but you just let me know when your screen is ready.
Yeah,
This is Jenny. I will make Tamara a presenter so that she's able to share her screen.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, it's opening up right now. Okay, so I've got blank. Unfortunately, I don't have anything in here, but that'll be okay. All right.
Tamara, this is Jenny. Once you're ready,
Yeah.
you have to use the share.
Yeah, it's underneath. Give me one moment. Share my screen. And let's see if it comes up with the right screen. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Okay, can everybody see?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what I've got here is a layout, and you can see right now I've only got title and content. Now this isn't a full, this isn't the full deck. This is just a sample one that I have. So what's in this layout here with this content placeholder? This is a content placeholder, and you create those in the slide master. So any content that I put in here will be able to be found by technologies. And you can see I have insert table, picture, charts, smart art, all of those different things that I can put in. By contrast, I'm going to just move this over. I don't do these, so it's going to take me a moment to find it. If I go to the Insert tab and go to Text Box, this is a text box. This we do not want to use, okay? We want to use a layout that has the proper number of content holders, and that way we know that all of our content can be found. If we use this text box at the top, it is often not seen by assistive technologies. So we never want to use this one, okay? I can show people how to add extra content placeholders. That's much more advanced. Anybody that wants to know that, if they contact me afterwards, I can send them a set of instructions for that.
All right.
I'm going to stop sharing.
Back on the pie charts, someone had a question. What does it mean to group layered images into a single object?
This is what we were talking about earlier with grouping images. So let's say I've got 5 different pictures. I've got a picture of a clipboard of a coffee mug, a picture of a pencil. I've got 5 images, and I can grab all 5 of those images and group them and turn them into one image that gets alternate text. What I normally do with that, if I have multiple images, and it doesn't matter if it is individual images or if it's smart art, anything like that, is I take a good quality screenshot and then I put the screenshot in its place so that I don't have to group the images, and therefore I don't have to worry about them having more than one set of alt text.
All right, thank you. Early on, we talked about how to actually check the PowerPoint if it's accessible. They just wanted to review how to do that, how to use the checker.
Okay, so you can access the accessibility checker several different ways. What I normally do is go to the File tab, and midway down, there's going to be a Check Accessibility button. And if you guys want me to show you, I can go ahead and share my screen again. Once you use that Check Accessibility button, 2 sections show up on the right-hand side of your screen. And the first one at the top is going to be any accessibility issues that you may have. You might have a slide that doesn't have a slide title. On the bottom of that checker, it's going to be a little thing telling you how to fix it and why it needs to be fixed. So if you click on the issue, let's say it says no slide title on slide 21. If you click on that, it'll take you to slide 21, and then from there you can just add your slide title.
All right, thank you. Who again do they contact at agencies to get access to the templates? Was it the communications offices?
Check your communications office. If you're a very small agency, if you have an accessibility coordinator, you can check with them. If you don't, you can contact one of us today and we'll put you in touch with somebody who can help you with that.
Okay. This person was asking specifically about DHS. That's Lolly. What's Lolly's last name? I don't remember.
Oh gosh.
We'll get that. One of us will remember.
Yeah, Liuski, but I'm trying to think. It's Lijewski. Liuski.
Okay. Someone had a question earlier about supplementary notes. They didn't really elaborate more on that.
Okay, so at the bottom underneath your slides as you're building your deck, there is a section labeled notes. We're researching what to do. There's been some recent changes, so we weren't going to discuss this exactly today. Up until just recently, that notes section was completely inaccessible to people using forms of assistive technology. And the latest version of PowerPoint, some types of assistive technology can access that notes panel, but some still, we think, cannot. So what we're telling people is, if you're the presenter, by all means, put your presenter's notes in that notes panel, but don't use that notes panel, at least right now, for any information that you want your users to obtain. Because for right now, we can't guarantee that it's going to be accessible. It has not been accessible up until now, and we're just starting to find some changes are happening. So until we can test everything and until we know for sure, we're asking people not to use it.
All right, another question. Are animations recommended or should they just not be used?
There's two kinds of animations, okay? One of them, you click a button and it reads bullet point 1, and then you click a second button and you read bullet point 2, and you click a third, click the button again and then it'll read bullet point 3. And the problem with this is if you hand that to somebody who's using a screen reader, they go through the slides, they get bullet point 1, and then they go to the next slide to get bullet point 1 and 2, and then they go to the next slide to get bullet point 1, 2, and 3, and so on and so forth. So if you choose to use it for your presentation, that's fine. Just whenever you hand it out, remove that animation. Only have the one slide with all of the bullet points in it for people to use. Now, the second kind of animation, we've all seen the one where there's this mini tornado and your material is swirling on the screen and it gets to the bottom and it bounces and it finally settles into place. For people with cognitive disabilities, such as attention deficit disorder, that swirling and bouncing is hugely problematic for them. They stop listening to the person talking and they watch things on the screen. I know because I do it every time somebody has one of those that swirls and bounces. So for that, we tell people, please just don't use it unless you really want to lose your users.
Follow-up to this is one of the animation tools that they've used frequently is the Appear one to walk viewers through building a composite figure. Is there any way to make that accessible?
Just on your final, if you go to hand it out, make sure that whatever slide the final slide is the one that you're handing out in your notes. I'm assuming that's the same thing as the first one I was talking about, where you bring one item up at a time on that slide. So just make sure in your deck when you hand it out that it has one slide for however many times that you're going through one item at a time, and have that final slide there.
All right. Related to that, what about transitions?
Some transitions are perfectly fine. You've got one that fades out and the next one fades in. That's fine. It's not disruptive. The swirling, bouncing transitions, you want to stay away from those. Anything that may be disruptive to anybody who has a cognitive disability or who has problems perceiving things on the screen, you want to be real cognitive of not having swirling, bouncing, and blinking items.
Okay, here's one that we probably don't know the answer to, but is there any plan by Microsoft to fix the text box so that it would be readable by screen readers?
We hope so. I don't have an answer for that one at all. That would be really nice because they keep giving us text boxes. They put the text box in a really easy to find space. They hide the content placeholders and the text boxes are not accessible. So I would like to see them either removed or made accessible.
All right, is PowerPoint able to create subtitles in pre-recorded presentations?
Oh, you mean like closed captions?
That's what my guess would be, but that's all that they said.
Guessing closed captions. I don't think that can be done in PowerPoint. Elaine, Rebecca, have you heard of that being done in PowerPoint? I mean, we use the notes section, and I want to say it's Captivate to create some of that, but I don't think that can be done in PowerPoint. What do you two?
Yeah, this is Rebecca. I don't think it can be created. It can be uploaded. So you can upload, a video file with open captions, and then I believe it is also possible to upload a separate like SRT file with captions as well into your PowerPoint video if you've embedded it. But I don't know about actually creating captions within the PowerPoint program. My best guess is no, but again, I don't know for sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Thank you, Rebecca.
Okay, we got another one that just came in. If we don't group images, but instead layer images on a slide or image and text, we get many alt text errors in the PDF. How can we put images and text on the same slide successfully?
So again, instead of grouping your images, take a screenshot and insert it as one image. Put that image into one content placeholder. Then you're going to put your text into other content placeholders. Now you can have multiple content placeholders on the screen. So if you want a heading and big text and then you've got 3 bullet points under that, you can put that into a second content placeholder with your image in a third. You can have multiple content placeholders, each with different things. So what I do there again is take one screenshot or 2 screenshots, depending on how I want my images to be, and then add the alt text to the one screenshot. That's why you're getting that error by grouping multiple images, each one having individual alt text.
Okay. We did have someone respond in the Q&A that they have embedded video and created captions, but it is very complicated but possible. So let's see if we got anything else in here. All right, so we have some earlier ones. I've been told I can't use color in my slide decks. Is this true?
Oh, absolutely not. No, color is amazing. It brings your presentation alive. It helps keep people involved and activated or actively watching your slide presentation. We want you to use color. We want you to use color smartly, however. There are several groups of people who have problems with color. The most obvious one is somebody who's colorblind, but also people who print off your slide deck in black and white. They may not be able to see things that are color based. So we request that you do 2 things, and one is that we make sure that we have really good contrast between the text and the background. So you want to make sure that, like, our state blue is a dark blue on a white background. That's got really good contrast, but that lime green that we use for the state on white is really poor contrast. People with low vision or people printing out on a printer may not be able to read that text. The other thing we want people to be aware of with color is never use color as the only way to get information across. So use a combination of color along with symbols or words or something. So don't just say, if it's green, it's good. If the text is green, it's good. If the text is red, it's bad. Say there's a green check mark next to whatever is good. There's a red X next to something that's bad. And that way you're using color and a symbol to get that information across. One other thing, I was going to say, one other thing you want to do is print out either print it out or you can view in the print commands, view it in grayscale or print out a slide deck in grayscale. See how it prints out and see if you can tell the difference on any tables that you have, the content within the tables, any charts. You want to make sure that you can tell the difference between the different sections of the chart.
All right, I'm going to paste in the Q&A a tool that we recommend, Color Contrast Analyzer, that you can go take a look for. I am having some trouble with text being tagged as figures and text. This is from text that has been typed or pasted into a master content placeholder.
That, I assume you mean whenever you're converting it into a PDF. And that is something very new that I've just discovered in the past, I'd say past 2 or 3 weeks, ever since one of the last updates. I'm not sure if that's an update issue or if you're putting a color background in that content placeholder, it may be viewing the color background as an image. I've noticed that it seems to happen more if you have a dark colored background and white text or something like that. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. Elaine and Rebecca, have you heard of anything specific? I know I've been seeing it a lot in the last 2 weeks.
This is Rebecca. No solutions or anything like that.
Okay. Another color related question. Speaking of color slide decks, is the preference to have white background when printing off slide decks? I've seen folks put the background all as dark blue. That seemed odd for a background choice.
So yeah, there's several things that you can do. One is if you know for a fact that everybody's going to be printing out or most people are going to print out your slide decks, go ahead and use a lighter color background. With the dark backgrounds, they often do print out dark gray. And for those people who are, especially right now, printing from home on a standard color printer, that's going to go through their ink really fast. And you may want to be cognizant of that, of creating content that people may be printing out at home. If you're doing it for an overhead, that dark looks really good in an overhead. So you can also do it on 2 different slide decks. That seems like a lot of work. And I'm not sure if there is, it seems to me there is a way to print dark slides on a light colored background, but I'm not positive of that. I don't really print those much. What about you two, Elaine and Rebecca?
This is Rebecca. No,
No?
I mean,
Okay.
like Tamara said, you know, if you could switch it before you send it out, but that might be a lot of work. So maybe just, well, we're all kind of stuck at home and or when people are doing a lot of printing, just maybe think about using a lighter background. But otherwise, like Tamara said, dark backgrounds do look nice. So
Yeah.
This is Jay speaking. We have somebody who would like to ask the question either verbally or need time to type it into the chat. So let's pause for a moment and Jenny will give power to that person, then the word for to speak.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks so much. I use Dragon Naturally Speaking, so I can't type my question in because with the background noise, it just picks up everybody else. I've been trying. I would love it if you would demonstrate the accessibility checker because I have Windows 7 and I don't think what you're talking about is available on Windows 7 for the accessibility checker. And then my second question was going along with the reading order. And by the way, I have had some training in how to do PowerPoint. We don't change the slide though. Like I've never seen a slide, the title of a slide put at the bottom. That's not what you're meaning, right? You're meaning the order of, like, let's say you have a table and you want it read from the top down. So you have to just adjust to show that it is read from the top down. Is that what you're getting at? Because I think that's what I had to do when I was doing something like that. So
Do one of
sense?
you want to? It does, and I'm going to ask either Rebecca or Elaine to answer. I'm going to pull up a PowerPoint that I can do some demonstrating on, something better than what I've got here. So can one of you answer some of those basic questions while I pull up a PowerPoint for demonstration?
yes, this is Rebecca. So when it comes to the reading order, it doesn't have anything to do with how the slide looks visually. So that is just, that stays the same. What we're talking about is the order that appears in the selection pane. So it's kind of behind the scenes a little bit. And that the
Right.
reading order in the selection
Yep.
pane is
Yep.
the bottom.
Yep. Gotcha. That's what I thought you meant. And I was just going to make sure that's what I
Yeah,
understood.
yes, of course. And then for the accessibility checker, I think
Okay.
Tamara should demo that maybe.
I'm pulling
That'd
up.
be great. Thanks.
Yep. So this is a horrible PowerPoint, and I'm going to apologize. I created a broken PowerPoint on purpose, and so this should be really good. Give me 1 second here to application. I'm going to request.
Press enter.
Okay, can everybody see this PowerPoint? It's awful. Okay, and it was created to be bad to begin with. So the first question is about the accessibility checker. There's a couple places to find that checker, and I think if you have an older version, if you go to File and then check for issues. Now yours may look a tiny bit different, but it'll still be one of these boxes. Open it up and then you get check accessibility.
Yep.
On the right-hand side of the screen, you've got your accessibility and you've got inspection results, and at the bottom will be more information. So here it says I'm missing alternate text, and I'm going to open it up and I'll just pick one of the pictures. It says picture 5, and when I select it, it takes me to the slide with the picture that does not have the alt text. Now to add the alt text, we had that earlier. It just depends on which version you have. You're either going to right click on it and go into size and position, or you're going to go up into, and I have to think about how to do this, right click and go into properties. And from there, you would go into alt text. Okay, so that's how you go through these where it's telling you what's wrong, the checker. Okay, now they also have a little drop down arrow on the newer version. You may not have that one if you have an older version. Okay.
Yeah.
The newer version brings up actions that you can choose from.
That's nice. I'm hoping to get that soon. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Any other
Thanks, Jake.
questions or anything else that you want demonstrated? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, any other questions?
I see one here about the accessibility checker in the review panel, and I should specify that when I was looking at the review panel or the review tab, that was in Office 365.
The check accessibility, yeah, I've got it in 365. I think it showed up in 2016 or 2013, I'm not sure, but it did show up one earlier, I believe. Any other questions? These have been some really good ones.
I think we're out of time. So we're going to wrap up and thank our presenters and everyone involved. It was a great session, great questions from everybody, really excellent questions. And we will have the session when it's finalized added to the Office of Accessibility website so that it can be looked at later. Anything else before we wrap this up from our panel?
This is Rebecca. No, I don't think so. Just thanks everyone for tuning in.
All right. Well, we'll end our session now. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.